is the Conservative American Message, hosted by the one and only Cam Lau. It is Monday, July 15th, 2024, and you are listening to the 80th episode of this podcast. This week's quote of the week comes from the Irish playwright George Bernard Shaw. He said, "Assassination is the extreme form of censorship." If you support what we're doing here at the Conservative American Message, please show us your support by making a purchase in our merch store. Go to campodcast.square.site or click the link in the description of this episode. If you want to support the podcast for free, please give us a 5-star rating and follow or subscribe wherever you listen. To stay up to date on everything we've got going on, follow us on social media at the Conservative American Message on Instagram and Facebook. In Texas, there's been a push to create a new stock exchange in response to increased regulations and the mass exodus of many businesses from places typically thought of as traditionally being the financial centers of the United States. Texas has been a stronghold of freedom, and with far less regulation and taxation, it is only natural to set up an exchange to be an alternative to places like the New York Stock Exchange or the NASDAQ, which continue to add new rules for companies to be in compliance with in order to be listed on those exchanges. The NASDAQ announced rules a few years ago, actually, that now require companies to have at least one member of their board of directors be female, and one more member must be a member of the LGBTQ community. If you do not meet this requirement, you must come up with an acceptable explanation of why this is not the case. That is insane, and I hadn't even heard about this until I started looking into the Texas exchange. It's so sad that companies are being forced into this wokeness just to even be allowed to operate anymore. And with the rise of ESG investing, carbon credits, all of that stuff, this madness will only continue to get worse and worse. That is precisely why an alternative stock exchange in Texas is not only a good business move, it is the ethically necessary thing to do. The most ethical move a business can make is to prioritize its shareholders and their interests. That should be the one and only goal. This is what I got from the website of the Texas Stock Exchange. The Texas Stock Exchange will focus on enabling U.S. and global companies to access U.S. equity capital markets and will provide a venue to trade and list public companies and the growing universe of exchange-traded products. The Texas Stock Exchange will be a fully electronic national securities exchange that will seek registration with the United States Securities and Exchange Commission. They go on to say that they plan to seek registration with the SEC later this year and that they have $120 million raised already to start this project. They're going to base it out of Texas. So it's going to be really interesting to see how they get treated by the SEC. And if they successfully do launch this thing, it's definitely going to shake up Wall Street and the entire stock market altogether. Well, I suppose now it's time to move on to what you're actually listening to this episode for. On Saturday, there was an attempted assassination of Donald Trump at a rally in Pennsylvania. In all honesty, guys, I don't even know what to say. I know that everyone is anxious to hear my in-depth analysis of this attack, but I'm not a journalist who can give you any new facts. I am merely a political commentator, and unlike the rest of the political commentators out there, I would prefer not to speak too much on this subject until I actually know more of the facts. I don't need to be the first one on the story, I just need to be right. So be certain that as more information is released, I will have much more to say. I mean, this is likely going to be one of the biggest themes for the remainder of the campaign. We're definitely never going to forget this. If you didn't get any of the story yet, what I can confirm is that Trump was hit by a bullet which grazed his right ear. One attendee of the rally was killed, a father who literally took a bullet for his family, and multiple others were injured. The shooter, of course, was taken down immediately, It took a while for the media to report on it, though. Like, I'm talking almost an hour after it happened until I heard any mainstream network say a word. At first, they were trying to, play it down and act as if nothing even happened. There were CNN headlines that read, "Trump falls at rally." No, he dove while being shot at. There were other news outlets that claimed loud noises startled Donald Trump. Yeah, a loud noise such as gunfire. At this point, all of the politicians and mainstream media are just making blanket statements against political violence. These same actors are the ones who should actually be held directly responsible for this shooting. For 8 years, they have been pushing this rhetoric that Donald Trump is the gravest threat to our democracy that we have ever faced. They say that he is a dangerous fascist who must be stopped at all costs. He is compared to Hitler daily. It was only a matter of time before one of these radicalized, anti-Trump, deranged leftists took a shot at him. They have proved their capacity for violence in all of their protesting and rioting that continues still today. The hatred for Donald Trump goes so deep that I think we all saw this coming. We were just hopeful that it might not actually transpire. The anti-Trump rhetoric incited this level of political violence by no less than explicitly asking for it. What did they honestly expect? I'm not going to go into too much about the actual shooter due to the vast amount of wild conspiracy theories arising. On social media, the keyboard warriors on both sides are having a heyday. The right is trying to tie the attack somehow to the CIA, which I'm not going to discredit nor confirm at this time. Meanwhile, the left is claiming that this is all just fake and Trump did it for show. I'm sorry, but that is insane. This happened in front of thousands of people. A man lost his life, for goodness sake. I can't even imagine being such a cynical piece of garbage who is so callous toward anyone that they would even post something like that. It is disgusting, quite frankly. But while conspiracy abounds, like I say, I'm staying out of all of it until we have all of the facts, or at least more of them. I'm not naive enough to think that the full truth will ever be revealed. This attempt on Trump's life will have a massive impact on the election. I fully expect Trump to blast ahead in the polls and win in a landslide this November. I was sure of victory before, but this display of how bad the left has really become is a game changer. The Biden campaign has now pulled all of their anti-Trump advertisements. The American people must remember that Donald Trump took a literal bullet for us. There is no reason for him to be running in this election. A billionaire at his stage of life should be hanging out on a yacht and golfing every day, not working harder than he ever has in his life to save this country. Donald Trump is one of the greatest presidents in the history of this country, and he always was. But on July 13th, 2024, Donald Trump went from great American president to great American hero. It's just like he said, "They're not after me, they're after you. I'm just in the way." Well, that's all I have time for. Were you offended by this podcast? Good. Thanks for listening, guys. I really appreciate you all. Have a great week and stay conservative.